Okay, with that, we bring in Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, former head of the CIA, and a Fox News contributor. Secretary Pompeo, always good to have you with us. Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Martha. It's great to be with you this afternoon.
You know, I'd like to show you this first off here. This is the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev. And here's what he said on Twitter in reaction to those SOB and climate comments last night from Joe Biden, the president. He says, as opposed to what the U.S. president has said, the existential threat is not climate, but the useless old geezers like Biden himself who have become senile and are ready to start a war against Russia. What do you make of all this, sir?
Well, Martha, look, I think the president's comments were fundamentally wrong in the sense of he is not crazy. Vladimir Putin is determined. And while he was wrong about his army's capabilities and Ukraine's capacity to defend against his attack, he is an actor who is acting deeply within his own country's best interest and what he's trying to achieve for it. And so to call him a crazy SOB, both I think is beneath the office of the president and is unhelpful, given that at some point there will have to be discussions between Putin and Zelensky, almost certainly. But to say that he's crazy, I think misunderstands. And frankly, Martha, this is how we lost deterrence. It's why Vladimir Putin thought he could invade, because the president of the United States didn't take seriously both the capabilities and the intentions of Vladimir Putin.
Well, all signs from Putin are that he feels emboldened in the current environment. He has just taken another, she's a dual citizen, an American citizen and Russian citizen. I think we have pictures of the people that he is currently holding, including Evan Gershkovich, which we can put up on the screen here. And we know what happened to Navalny. We don't know the full picture, but it will become clear, no doubt, in time. And then, it is clear that he is up there in a nuclear-capable strategic bomber sitting next to the pilot, which we have video of as well, which he put out today. He's on the right-hand side of the screen showing off some of their latest equipment. So what is he trying to demonstrate with all of this?
Well, Martha, some of this is theater for sure, but some of it's just his style. Yet what we ought to pay attention to is the actions on the ground. Your point about they just took another town and they've just grabbed additional Americans, I think tells you all you need to know about the failure of the Biden administration to restore deterrence. Look, you never get it perfect, and it's never forever. But whether it was the president's comment, which said, it seems like a long time ago, said a minor incursion into Ukraine might be okay, or what happened in Afghanistan, those are things that Vladimir Putin and the team around him, they remember those things, Martha. They can see weakness. And even to date, with all the support we've provided Ukraine, we've restrained them. We haven't held any Russian asset at risk. So my view is we should have provided more. We should have done it faster. Had we done that, I think we could have brought this conflict to an end more quickly. And I think the risk that Vladimir Putin continues to test and push is very real for the next 10 months.
Obviously, the biggest test that is on the table right now is what's happening in Ukraine. He wants that country. He wants the whole thing. He's watching what's happening here in Washington. Bret Baier was in Ukraine, not far from the front lines. He sat down with President Zelensky yesterday. Let's listen to a bit of this interview, and we'll get your thoughts on it on the other side.
So as you look at 2024 and those goals, what do you see? One, if you get the funding from the U.S., what does it look like? And the other way, if you don't, what does it look like?
Some John shouted that. So will Ukrainians survive without Congress support? And this often, last months, I often heard such question. Will we survive? Of course, but not all of us. And if we understand this price, if the world is ready for this, okay, you will see it. But it's tragedy. It will be tragedy for all of us, not only for Ukraine, not only for Ukrainians, for all Europe.
What do you say to that, sir?
Martha, I think that piece is exactly right. It is deeply in America's best interest and Europe's interest as well to support what the Ukrainians are doing. We ought not let an aggressor, a barbarian like Vladimir Putin, who is determined to retake and create what he calls greater Russia. We ought not let that happen. The Ukrainians are prepared to fight. We ought to give them not only the money, but most importantly, the tools that they need. We ought to allow them to unleash those tools. And if we do that, Americans will all be safer and better off. We shouldn't forget, too, Martha, that the Chinese Communist Party is watching this. The Iranians are not only watching it, but sending missiles to support the Russians. This is, in fact, a moment where the whole world is trying to decide, will the United States take on its central leadership role in the way that it's historically had? And it was good for America when we did so.
Okay, but in your own party, there's a lot of dissension over this issue. The other night, former President Trump was talking to Laura Ingraham, and he pivoted quickly to the money that's not coming from Europe. Watch this real quick, and I'll get a brief thought from you on the other side if I can.
We've got to get them to pay up because there's $150 billion difference. I feel very bad. Remember this. You're really up against a war machine in Russia. Russia, what they do? They defeated Hitler. They defeated Napoleon. You know, they're a war machine. They're a much bigger country.
Your thoughts before we go, sir.
Martha, the Europeans absolutely should do more. It's in their backyard. But we should remember it was the United States that provided the Javelin missiles under Donald Trump when he was president of the United States and I was Secretary of State that saved Kyiv. We know what we need to do. We know how to do it. And the Europeans need to be a central part of making sure that Ukraine is both safe, prosperous, and more secure. We can do this together.
Yeah, you got to look at the chess pieces ahead on this board, on this issue, and see where all this goes. And thank you for helping us do that a bit today. Thank you very much, Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State.
Thank you, Martha.
Always good to
Have a
see
good
you.
afternoon.
Thank you very much.